Good morning. I'm Steve Perry. I'm the President and Executive Director of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it's my honor and pleasure to welcome all of you here this morning for this special program. We call this program The Heart of a Hall of Famer. And in a moment, Jerry Shockey is going to come up and tell you a lot more about why we have this program. But briefly, just let me say that part of this purpose of this program is to provide each of you students with an opportunity to think about what it will take for you to achieve your goals in life. And what better way to give you some thoughts or information about how to achieve your goals in life than to have someone here speak with you about how they achieve their goals in life. And that someone happens to be a person who achieved at the highest level in his chosen field of endeavor. We're delighted today that we have legendary coach Marv Levy to be the presenter. If you wanted to get advice about how to do anything well, if you wanted to learn how to drive a car, or if you wanted to learn to play the game of golf, or anything else that you might want to learn how to do, or if you wanted to learn how to achieve your goals in life, why not learn from an expert, someone who's been there, done that? So that's what this program is all about. You have a great opportunity to ask questions and interact with a real master in the field. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our guest this morning. Mr. Levy was born in Chicago. That's where he grew up. And when he was your age, he was attending high school at South Shore High School in Chicago. He graduated in 1943, and as you recall, at that time, our country was involved in World War II, so he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Force to serve our country. In fact, he was following in the footsteps of his father because his dad had served our country in the military in World War I. Mr. Levy attended Cole College, that's in Iowa, where he earned a degree in English literature, and as you may remember, he also later earned a degree in English history from Harvard. Because he was such an outstanding student, he earned the high academic honor of being a member of the Phi Beta Kappa Society as a scholar. While he was achieving all this in his academic career, he was at the same time an outstanding athlete. He played football, basketball, and ran track on Cole College's team. Now, as we all know, Mr. Levy went on to be one of the most successful NFL football coaches of all time. Let me tell you a little bit about his coaching career. He began coaching at his old college, Cole College. That's one of the college level. That's not where he began, but that's one of the college level coaching positions he held. He also was the head coach of the University of New Mexico, the University of California, which was a place, by the way, where a fellow by the name of Bill Walsh was one of his assistants. Mr. Levy ended his college coaching career at the Distinguished College of William and Mary. In 1969, he began his NFL football coaching career as a special teams coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. He also coached the LA Rams and the Washington Redskins. I believe his first head coaching job was with the Montreal Alouettes in the Canadian Football League, and where in 5 seasons, he took his teams to 3 CFL Grey Cup appearances and 2 championships. And he won what's called the Annis Stuckus Trophy, which is our version of the Coach of the Year in 1974. In 1978, he returned to the NFL as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. In '86, Mr. Levy was chosen to be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, and he's best known for being the head coach of that particular team. The following season, his team posted a 12-4 record and won the first of 6 AFC Eastern Division titles. With his high-powered, what was called the no-huddle offense, Coach Levy led his AFC championship team to an unprecedented 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances. From '88 through 1997, his Buffalo Bills were first in the AFC in winning percentage and second only to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFL. Coach Levy is the winningest coach in Buffalo Bill history. He established a record of 112 wins versus 70 losses in the regular season and was 11-8 in the playoffs during his 11.5 seasons with the Bills. Mr. Levy's outstanding coaching career led him to be named the NFL Coach of the Year in 1988 and the AFC Coach of the Year in 88, 93, and 95. Obviously, a very successful career. He's now a successful author, among other things. Mr. Levy is 86 years old, but he still runs 3 miles 4, 5, 6 times a week. Anybody in here run 3 miles 4 or 5 times a week? Well, obviously, Mr. Levy has not only taken good care of his career, he's taken good care of himself. We're going to show you a video in a moment of some of his football playing highlights, but let me just say that in 2001, Coach Marv Levy earned the highest honor that anyone associated with pro football can achieve when he was enshrined here as a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Before we bring Mr. Levy to the podium, please take a brief look at this video.
Entered Harvard Law School in the fall of 1950, stayed about 3 weeks and said to myself, I want to be a coach.
Marv Levy first became a head coach in the NFL in 1978 with the Kansas City Chiefs. But he is best known as the leader of the Buffalo Bills from 1986 through his retirement in 1997.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now? Way to come back, guys. Way to hang in there.
Levy led the Bills to 8 postseason appearances in 11 years and was the first man to coach a team to 4 consecutive Super Bowls.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to greet legendary coach and Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Marv Levy.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. How complimented I am to be invited to visit today with those of you and those who are tuned in via video, because I think sitting out here in the audience are some young people with high aspirations. And high aspirations need to be combined with high ideals, in my opinion. Aspirations without ideals, I don't have much respect for. In fact, during the time that I coached with the Buffalo Bills, yes, we won a lot of games. But that is a team effort. And I was affiliated and associated with some other remarkable people on the playing field, but everybody that worked in our organization, our general manager, other people. And we established right from the beginning something which ought to resonate with those of you here today, that ability without character will lose. So the Buffalo Bills launched on a procedure where we would bring aboard only individuals of high character. Now, by high character, I'm saying guys that had towed the mark, had good focus, who weren't all me. Certainly they had ambitions. Certainly the people in the organization had ambitions, whether it's some of the men or some of the women that work in the Bills organization, because there are about 200 people besides just those 53 guys out on the playing field. But ability without character will win. And you know, some professional playbooks that you see, folks, are really big. And they have rules that the players have to follow. And those rules go on and on for page after page. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. With the Buffalo Bills, believe it or not, we had just 2 rules. Just 2 rules. Be on time and be a good citizen. Now, I know citizenship is one of the 6 pillars of high character, and I think all 6 of them are very important. And even though maybe some of those others weren't part of our rules, they certainly were part of what we believed in. So we had just those 2 rules. Everything else we tried to educate our players to, and educate the people in our organization too. Because we didn't want to just go by the rules, we wanted them to believe in them. Be on time, care about your teammates, be responsible. Own up if you did something wrong. Take responsibility. That's one of the 6 pillars, isn't it? Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, citizenship, the one I already mentioned. All those are very important aspects of what it does take. You know, sometimes I can oversimplify, and we tried to simplify. Our playbook, by the way, was the smallest playbook in the league, but we wanted our players to understand it, to master it, to know what they're doing, to execute it well. And so everything relative to character, the renowned Martin Luther King Jr. once said something which again resonated with me. He said, some things you're going to do because they're the popular thing to do. And some things you're going to do because, you know, they politically make good sense to do. And some things you do because they're the right thing to do. And then Martin Luther King Jr. went on to say, if number 1 and number 2 ever come in conflict with number 3, do the right thing. Do the right thing. And that is so important. You know, success, we felt, with our team, went even beyond whether you won or lost the game. In fact, there was a great sports writer from almost a century ago named Grantland Rice, who once wrote just a brief poem. When the one great scorer comes to write against your name, he writes not that you won or lost, but how you played the game. And that's important. Sure, you want to win. Sure, that's an object. Sure, you devote yourself to it. Sure, that's the outcome you like. Sure, you're disappointed if it doesn't occur. But what do? Do you blame everybody else? Or do you own up and say, what could I have done differently? How do I do it better? Do you go back to work? Or do you lie there in the fetal position and whimper? Or you decide you're going to cheat? You're not hurting other people when you cheat, just other people. You're hurting yourself, because you can't really like yourself if that's the way you're going to operate. We used to tell our players, play hard, play clean, play to win. But win or lose, honor the game, honor your teammates, honor your opponents. And those are all parts of character, maybe not, and they can be categorized into one of those 6 pillars, and I'd be glad to talk in a little while about anything like that. But, you know, character, good character, you're not just looking for others to like you. You want to like yourself. You want to have reason to like yourself. And those 6 pillars certainly lead to that. Well, I think maybe the best way we might proceed from here, and I'd be very glad to respond, and I know that's the way the program was set up too, to a question and answer session, and it'd be my pleasure. Again, I'm so glad to see all of you here, and I know you're interested in sports. It's great for me on any occasion I have to come back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I can recall the day about 10 years ago when I was inducted, and what a glow I felt, and looking about at men that had been previously inducted and seeing the glow they still felt. I hope you're enjoying your stay here and the look around. This is a great institution. I'm so proud to be part of it and to be part of today's program. So I'll turn this back over and see what we've got relative to Q&A. You want?
Go with the chair right here. Sit right here.
Oh, okay.
Let's start by giving Coach Levy a round of applause. Thank you for those opening remarks.
Thank you.
And thank you, Coach, for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and coming to visit us here in Canton, Ohio. And let's also say thank you to our President and Executive Director, Mr. Steve Perry. Let's give him a round of applause for the opening. Thank you, Steve. There are a few individuals that I'd like to recognize that without their help with this program that it is not possible. And first of all, the gentleman sitting up front here, Mr. Adam Shipley, he's been the point of contact for all of you guys, coordinating getting you guys here. He's also, those of you that are tuning in through video conference, in case you guys didn't know, we have schools tuning in from all across the country. But for those of you that are tuned in through video conferencing, he's the one controlling your camera view right now and all that fun stuff. So Let's give Adam a round of applause. Adam, can you raise your hand there?
Okay, Adam.
Then also our AV staff as well, who's recording, setting up the audio, and all the stuff that it takes to get this room ready. Jim Frucci, and I see Galina's head sticking out up there in the window. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And then lastly, as you saw when you walked in to the building, they greeted you at the front entrance. They brought you back here. They're making sure that you guys are taken care of today, as they do with all of our guests. They're such a tremendous asset to us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The folks with the white shirts on that you see back there. Let's give a round of applause for our volunteers. But most importantly, the schools that are in attendance. You guys are the real stars of the show. Without you being here today to supporting the Hall of Fame and coming out here to hopefully learn something about character, it's not possible. So first of all, let's thank all the teachers and the administrators, the coaches, the folks that brought you here. Let's give them a round of applause as well. Thank you for coming here. And last but definitely not least, let's give a round of applause for all the students that are here as well.
All right.
But before we get to questions, and we're going to open things up to the live audience here in just a moment as well. We'll interject questions from the schools tuning in from across the country. But before we do that, what we always like to do is give you an opportunity to show a little school spirit here today. So as I call upon your school, feel free to leave it in here, not in the museum. So feel free to give a shout out for your school when I do call upon you. Let's start off. We have in Uniontown, Ohio, Green High School. I think the ladies won on that one, fellas. Newcomerstown, Ohio, and Newcomers High School. Newcomerstown? There we go. I like the enthusiasm. Let's go right up front here. We have Smithville High School. Thank you for being here, Smithville. East Canton High School? Okay. And then last but definitely not least, and happens to be one of our educational advisory panel members, Carol Hart is from the school. McDonald High School, are you here?
We are.
Thank you, McDonald, for being here. So we appreciate your guys' attendance, but I'd also like to recognize the schools that are in attendance from schools across the country. So not only they can see who the schools are, so Coach Levy can see who the schools are, and then you guys can hear who the schools are as well. And when I call upon the schools that are tuned in through video conferencing, feel free to give a shout out. So that means go ahead and close the doors in your classrooms, if you will. And I apologize to the teachers in advance for the shout out they're going to do in the classroom. But we're going to first start off in the great state of Pennsylvania, Perryopolis, Fraser Middle School. Are you there? Adam, can we bump the volume up a little bit? Is that okay? And Fraser, thank you. We see you there. We'll ask you mute your mics. Let's go to Texas now. Santo, Texas. Santo High School. And that was Santo. It looks like you guys are taking notes throughout the program. I like that. Thank you very much. Let's go to Newport News, Virginia. One of Coach Levy's coaching stints was there. Sedgefield Elementary School. Thank you, Sedgefield. And let's go to the great state of Alabama and Huntsville, and let's go to our friends at Mountain Gap, Penny Hill. I know you guys are there. Thank you, Mountain Gap. And last but definitely not least, our friends in New Jersey at Gloucester High School. Gloucester, are you there? Gloucester? Okay, maybe they're not connected yet. We'll see if they're going to get here. But that's the order of the questions. So the video conference schools, we're going to interject questions from you guys. We will remind you to please leave your mics muted until we call upon your school. But that's the order of the questions we're going to go through from our video conference group, and we'll try to get at least one from each group. It'll be Fraser, Santo, Sedgefield, Mountain Gap, and Gloucester. So Fraser and Santo, start thinking of your questions. But today, I just want to encourage you guys. You guys have the opportunity to ask questions of one of the greatest minds in pro football, and someone that not only is a great coach and a great judge of athleticism and talent, but as you heard from top down in their organization with the Buffalo Bills, they picked based on character. I mean, that was a top mark. So here's not only someone that is a great evaluator of talent, but just a great evaluator of character and what traits it takes to be successful. Sometimes you can put your finger on those traits, and sometimes it's just unexplainable. You just know that person's going to be successful. So I encourage you guys to ask those thought-provoking questions. You know, ask about those 6 core pillars of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Let's just have fun today. So we're going to open up questions to the live audience first here. I will let you know that we do have microphones. If you can wait till the microphone gets to you, go ahead and raise your hand. You can wait till the microphone gets to you. Speak into that loudly and clearly. I will also repeat the question just to make sure that our schools turning in through video conferencing heard that. So go ahead with any questions that are out here. Everybody's scared to ask the coach. Well, there we go. Brave. You always have to have the icebreaker.
That's it.
You are the icebreaker.
I was wondering how you were able to manage the sports that you played while you were in college and being the top in your class.
And how were you able to manage sports and the classroom during college and remain in the top of the class?
Yes, it does take some organization of your time. And it was just a matter, and I do think it's important, of being organized and sticking to it. Sometimes I might say, oh, golly, I don't feel like going to the library tonight. But then I'd have to say, wait a minute, if I'm going to stay on track. I was in college to get an education first. I wouldn't have wanted to go to college unless I could compete in sports, because it was the most compelling extracurricular thing for me. But again, it's a matter of organizing your time. And by that, I don't mean you've got to sit down and write out a tiny detailed list of what you're going to do this time and that time. I mean, just get going, get started. If you can manage your time management is the answer to that question, young lady. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for starting the program off. Let's go with another one out here. If we have another question. Gentleman up front here from Smithville.
Coach Levy, growing up, who were some of your role models?
You're going to ask me some of my role models. Very early in the introduction, Steve Perry mentioned that I had served during World War II. Well, when World War II began, I was about your age. I was in high school. I was about 16 years old. And there was no television then and none of the other technology. Radio, that was it. And even though the United States at the beginning wasn't in the war, England was fighting Nazi Germany. And I used to turn the radio on, and I became fascinated by a British prime minister who was the most blow-you-away orator I have ever heard. His name was Winston Churchill. And I used to listen to his speeches as he spoke about the finest hour or what it would take. So Winston Churchill was one whom I never knew or anything. My own father, a veteran of World War I, as Steve pointed out. I remember, talk about character, one time I had cut high school, cut class, didn't go. And I lied about it. You know, how I was schooled today, I told my dad a lie, and a little bit later he caught me on that lie, and boy, I was told more lies to try and cover up the first lie. You know how that works. And finally, he stood back and he said, Marv, when he criticized something I said, I contradicted something I said. Marv, I said, if you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said. Well, that was pretty good. Tell the truth, and even though sometimes you have to own up that you made a mistake. So certainly he was a role model. Again, I'm a history major. I happened, and this doesn't resonate with you, but I happened to live during the time when I felt one of the 3 greatest presidents in the history of our nation was president of the country, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So I was enamored by him. Some of the teachers I had in college, in fact, one of my high school teachers, her name was Alice B. Conlon. Isn't that a a great name for a teacher. Initials are ABC. Certainly got me on the track to start getting interested in academics again. So those are some of the people. As a coach, you won't know the name, but there was a man who coached at the University of Oklahoma back in the 40s and 50s named Bud Wilkinson, who I think is one of the greatest coaches that ever lived. And since that time, Lombardi, Tom Landry were great coaches. Don Shula, the coach of the Miami Dolphins, whose teams won more games than any other coach in the history of professional football. But that isn't the primary reason why I admire Don Shula. I did get to know him well over the years. Year after year after year, his teams were the least penalized team in the league. He taught clean football. He taught clean football. And he, too, didn't bring players onto the team of bad character. The Dolphin players never got needed at our Buffalo Bills. They were focused on what was important. Their family, their teammates, other people with whom they worked, being honest, building their reputation on sound ground, not on fluff.
And I'll give you guys an example of how big of a Winston Churchill fan he was and how big character was in the locker room for Coach Levy. He posted stuff throughout his office, throughout the locker room, things like this. This is a donation he made to us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and you'll see it's a quote from Winston Churchill. Success is never final and failure is never fatal. It is the courage that counts. So you can see how much he emphasized character within his players. And I just got a couple more. You probably remember these here, Coach.
Oh, yes, I do.
This one here, adversity is just an opportunity for heroism. So another quote, and then one last one that he has here is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that a little extra we do routinely. So just an example of the emphasis, as I said, on character that he had in the locker room. Do we have another question here? And we'll go next. We'll go to the schools tuning in. We have Frazier will be ready.
There's a young man there.
Out of all your years coaching, who is your biggest leader that you had on your teams?
I have to admit, I have a bit of a hearing problem, so Jerry here is relaying some of these
out of all the players that you had on your teams coaching, who was the greatest leader of your players?
Well, I'll tell you, I coached for 47 years. Now, that's a lot of players. That's a lot of players. I'll tell you what, if you answer this question, I'll answer that one. Which hand made the noise? In other words, there were several that were fine leaders. With the Buffalo Bills.
That's good, right?
With the Buffalo Bills, Jim Kelly was a fantastic leader, quarterback on our team, high character guy, great family guy, great father. Jim Kelly was certainly one who was an outstanding leader. Same on that team, we had an outside linebacker named Darryl Talley, who was a wonderful leader. There's two of them. It isn't always the names you'll know the most. Another, Mark Kelso, currently a teacher, a principal actually, of a school back in Buffalo right now, and also does the Bills broadcasts, was another. But there are just a few of so many that I was fortunate enough to be associated with over the years.
All right, thank you. We'll come back to the live audience here. If you want to go ahead and raise your hands, we'll get the next question prepared. But we're going to go to a couple from our schools tuned in from across the country. And as I said, we'll start off with Frazier. Frazier, you can go ahead and unmute your mics. If you have a question for Coach Levy, go ahead and share that.
Oh, Mr. Levy, how do you feel football helped teach you more about the 6 pillars of character?
How does football teach you more about the 6 pillars? That was the question?
Yes, correct.
Well, I tell you, they all apply so much. Trustworthiness. When does a player, football is an ultimate team game. That means you have to trust your teammates. You have to trust them. You want friends you can trust, but you have to build a trustworthiness that earns you friends. So you have to be trustworthy if you want your teammates to believe in you, even if you happen to have fumbled one time, or if you've happened to make a play that didn't go the way you wanted it. Trustworthiness certainly applies there. Respect Certainly, and all of this now applies within the organization. Respect for the game, respect for the rules, respect that the game is helping you make friends and acquaintances that you will know for a lifetime, and that you respect them. You respect the fact that they may be different from you, from different backgrounds, different cultures, different races, but they're your teammates. So respect, responsibility. When you walk out on the field, you're responsible not only to those 53 teammates, but to maybe those 80,000 fans sitting in the stands to play by the rules, even if some of them become unruly, even if some of them act in a way you don't want to. Fairness, hey, we had some guys that racked up unbelievable statistics. Thurman Thomas, for instance, one of the greatest running backs that ever played the game. If you took Thurman out to rest him and put Kenny Davis, his outstanding backup, in the game, Thurman never griped and said, I've already got 98 yards, I want 100. No, they play fair, let the other guy. Play fair, don't cheat on your opponent. Play fair, make the win, if you get it, something that you truly earned. And if you didn't, you hope that your opponent has played fair in getting his. Caring, certainly you care about your teammates, but about a lot more than that, about your community, about fans who like the game, about others. Caring, football is part of it. And be a good citizen, as I said, that was one of our rules. Be a good citizen. One of the others, it wasn't one of the pillars specifically, that I think is so important, however, too, is perseverance, sticking to it. You don't always get everything going the way you want. That's what allowed our team to go back again to those 4 Super Bowls, even though we'd lost the previous one. Think about it, 32 tremendously talented teams come to training camp every year, all wanting to get so hard into the playoffs. Only 12 of them make it. 11 of those 12 finish their season with a loss. But what do? They persevere. They persevere, and you know something? I like, as I say, I like literature, and so I brought a poem here that maybe relates to perseverance also, and I hope it resonates, although I'm overusing that word resonate, I hope it resonates with you. And the author is unknown, but the poem grabbed me when I read it once. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and your debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night came down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint and the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It might be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit. And that's what a football team has to do too when they lose a game. Not blame others, not get angry, not go into a snit, go back to work for the next one. That's my answer.
Thank you, Frazier. And you know, you guys realize that he's talking football, but he's also talking life here, life in general. As students, as employees here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as family members, as citizens of the United States, of our communities and whatnot. You know, all these things that he talked about apply to your everyday life. And that's, you know, the premise of this program is to demonstrate those sorts of things. So thank you, Frazier. Let's go to Texas. Santo, if you have a question. Santo, you guys were there. Oh, go ahead.
What was the hardest part of getting your team to play together and not be so?
Can you repeat that again?
What was the hardest part of getting your team to play together and not be selfish?
What was the hardest part of getting your team together and not be selfish, playing as a team? What was the most difficult part in that?
Yeah, it isn't something you accomplish in one day. First of all, every evening at training camp, we had team meetings, and I would always devote 5-10 minutes to something about teamwork, nothing to do about caring about your opponent, about caring about the game before I'd go to the blackboard and start putting up those X's and O's, and before we talk that. The hardest part is, and I just addressed it, persevering. It's not done in one lecture. It's not done in one lecture. It's done over a period of time. How you conduct yourself, how you try to educate your players to conduct themselves finally seeps in, and I think it begins slowly to invest into the being everybody. So the hard part to answer the question is sticking with it, not giving up. Not giving up because you had some guy some guy you're trying to educate on your team that sort of too much me, doing we tried to teach our players, if you score a touchdown, act like you've been there before and you're going to be there again. That was the way Walter Payton did it, the way Thurman Thomas did it, the way others did it. In other words, don't be all, but it takes time sometimes to convince a player of that. And once in a while, it takes a teammate like Jim Kelly or Darryl Talley to walk up to the guy and quietly say, hey, knock it off, come on, before it finally does seep in. So stick-to-itiveness is the toughest part. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you, Santo. We'll ask you to go ahead and mute your mics there at Santo, and we'll come back to Sedgefield and Mountain Gap next. And I did get an email, Gloucester. I know you're having technical difficulties there and you can't respond, so we did get that. But let's go to. I know there was a question back here. The gentleman back here had a question, if I'm not mistaken. Your turn. I thought you had your hand up last time. We'll go to the audience here. Oh, one up here.
Good morning. First of all, as a Browns fan, I want to say the late 80s were a little tough. You could have taken it a little easier on us. What was the most difficult part of being a head football coach?
The question is good. The answer isn't easy. You know, I never found it difficult. I can't say it was difficult. Challenging at times. You're making me think and reach, because it's a good question, but I don't think it was difficult. It was fun. It would test you out from time to time. Maybe, and this might be right here. I was thinking about it. I'm not avoiding your question. I'll get back to it. When I was hired to take over as coach of the Buffalo Bills in mid-season back in 1986. In mid-season, I walked into the team meeting room, and Jim Kelly was in there, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, all guys that are now in the Hall, Andre should be soon, in the Hall of Fame, but I didn't even recognize them. And I looked down, and just as I'm looking down at those of you now, and I said, fellas, at that time I was 61 years old. And I said to them, fellas, we don't have a generation gap. We've got a 2-generation gap. Well, now as I look down at this audience, we don't have a generation gap. We've got a 3-generation gap. So communicating with players and believing in each other, being able to understand people who are considerably younger or considerably older than you is a hurdle to cover. I can't say difficult.
Thank you. We got another one over here. Oh.
Yep.
Coach, may I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yes.
Question on why coaching football wasn't necessarily difficult. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that it was something that you loved and it was your passion. You mentioned that you had started off thinking that you might go into one career and you subsequently decided to go into something you loved. What would you tell the students about that?
Yes. Thank you, Steve. Yes. I went to a small liberal arts college in Iowa. Coe College is the name of it, and did participate in sports. And I had some guys that I really admired as my coaches, both in all 3 sports. My football coach and then the basketball track coach was the same person, basketball and track. And I really admired them. I had entered college with the idea of going to law school. And as the 4 years passed, I got ready to graduate, and my college football coach, his name was Dick Clausen, came to me and he said, Marv, if you ever want to coach and there's an opening here, I'd like to have you as a member of my staff. Well, I went off to law school, off to Harvard Law School, and deep inside by that time, this is what I wanted to do. It doesn't mean it's what you want to do. There's something that you want to do. You don't follow it because of how much money you can make. Because I do recall that about 2 or 3 weeks into law school, I said, no, I want to coach. They allowed me to transfer over to the Graduate Schools of Arts and Science at Harvard, which started about a month later than law school, and I got my degree. And 2 years later, when I was now teaching and coaching as an assistant in high school, I got a call from my college coach. He said, there's an opening on my staff. How about it? Oh, I was just beside myself and with happiness about it. And my wife also had gone to Coe College. When I hung up the phone, golly, we were so happy. And finally she said to me, what are they going to pay you? And I said, I didn't ask him that. I didn't ask him that. So whatever you do, follow your heart with what you want to do. And I think you'll be happier doing it, not just for the monetary returns that come. Sure, you have to be comfortable enough, but that shouldn't be the primary motivation.
Thank you. Do we have another one, gentleman back here?
How did you deal with the players who were not living up to your expectations in terms of character? And the second part of that is, how much did you rely on your team leaders to help you get those other players to understand what you were trying to accomplish?
Superb question, because even with the ideals I espoused a moment ago, we wanted only players with high character, we wanted only this, there would be deviations from that. Somebody would get in trouble, somebody would take on what we interpreted to be a very selfish approach to things. Almost always, unless there's an exceptional reason why there should be an exception, I would call the player in personally to the office and talk with him. I wouldn't immediately get enraged with him. I'd talk to him, I'd try and convey, I'd try to educate. If he'd say, I'm not going to do that, I'd go back and forth and explain again why, and the time might finally come, and I'd say, well, then you're not going to continue to be part of our team. I've had occasions where players did do great turnarounds. We've had occasions where players had to be let go. And it's a tough judgment. I certainly almost always coordinated with Bill Polian, our general manager, in making real tough decisions like that. But, and yes, there were players in our team who possessed great leadership who might very quietly bring a guy aside who had these players that I'm talking about had great respect of everybody in the organization and talk to the fellow, and they'd have good effect on him. We had very few guys who were in the locker room raging and giving pep talks and da-da-da and doing that type of thing. Usually it was a quiet conversation out of the spotlight that did it.
And let's go back to our video conferencing groups. We'll go Sedgefield and Mountain Gap. Sedgefield, if you have a question there in Virginia.
How do you feel helps your character?
Can you repeat that, please?
How do you feel Sedgefield helps your character? Football helps your character.
How did football help your character?
How did football help your character? Well, there's going to be some disappointments that you have to bounce back from on the football field. There's going to be some disappointments in life that you have to bounce back from. There's going to be a heck of a lot of fun out on that football field. I'm going to meet some great guys, and even in our organization, some great ladies. That's what you want. That's what life is about, association with other people. A football team that's really got morale begins to get almost a family attitude. And what's more important than your family? And educating your family sometimes that need it. And getting education from members of your family sometime. There's been rare occasions, and I can't say the exact thing, where maybe I learned something from our players. Just the challenges that you face, the preparation that you have to go through in order to have an opportunity to succeed, the associations that you make, all of those, I think, can have very positive effects on character growth.
Thank you, Sedgefield. And let's go to Alabama, Mountain Gap. Yep.
What was your most memorable win?
Boy,
What was your most memorable win?
what's our most notable win?
Memorable win. What is your most memorable win?
Memorable. Well, 47 years, there certainly were a lot of them. I guess, okay, I'll try and get specific and don't give it the old hand clap thing again here, but I'll try to get specific. After we had gone to 2 Super Bowls, we were striving to get back again the 3rd year. And going into the last game of the season, we were tied with the Miami Dolphins for the division championship. Well, on that last day, Miami won their game. If we won ours, we would have wound up being in a tie, but we had the tiebreak. But we lost. Jim Kelly was injured, out of the game, couldn't play. Cornelius Bennett, who was the best linebacker in the league at that time, I believe, was injured, couldn't play. We went down and played the Houston Oilers, they were called, and Houston beat us something like 28-7. We had those star players out of the game. Well, as a result, Miami won the division, but our record was still good enough so that we were a wild card team in the playoffs, and Houston, by virtue of beating us, was the other wild card team. So first round of the playoffs, we were playing the Houston Oilers again, in Buffalo this time. Jim Kelly was still injured, our great quarterback, out of the game. Thurman Thomas had gotten injured during the week. Now he was out, along with Cornelius Bennett. Bunch of substitutes. At halftime, Houston was winning 28-3. 28-3 at halftime. Well, we went into the locker room, and I didn't say much to our team. I just said, fellas, you're 2-time defending AFC champions. When you walk off the field after this game, don't let anybody ever say that you quit, that you gave up. Then I walked over to our backup quarterback, a fellow named Frank Reich. I said, Frank, I understand you led the greatest comeback in college football history. He did, at Maryland. I said, today you're going to lead the greatest comeback in pro football history. He nodded his head, tight-lipped, you know. Well, we're walking up the tunnel, and the quarterback coach, his name was Jim Schaffner, said, Marv, we're only down by 25 points. The greatest comeback was 28 points. And like I say, never tell a lie. Well, I had told Frank a lie that time. I said, Frank doesn't know that. Don't worry. Well, the first play of the second half, Frank threw a touchdown pass. But the problem was he didn't throw it to our receiver. He threw it to their defensive back, who intercepted it and ran it back for a touchdown. Now we're down by 35-3. Believe it or not, we came back and won that game. Won it in overtime, 41-38. Greatest comeback in the history of pro football. A very memorable day. In the locker room after the game, when the celebration finally finished, Frank Reich walked up to me and said, Coach, I knew we were only down by 25 points. That's why I threw that interception for the touchdown. I said, Frank, I'm going to tell you a bigger lie. I believe you. So anyway, that's the most memorable game, probably, the great comeback.
Thank you. Thank you, Mountain Gap. And Gloucester, did you get your audio issues? Gloucester, are you there? New Jersey? And if not, we'll come back to the live audience here for a few more questions. Okay, let's go back to our live audience here. A couple folks up front, if we can get a couple microphones or a microphone up here. We have 2 different folks up front here.
There's a gentleman. Okay.
You were talking about family so much. Did your family support your decision to become a pro football coach?
Did your family support you in becoming a head football coach?
Well, I was in law school, and when I decided I wanted to be that coach, young lady, and had to call my father, I told him I'm leaving Harvard Law School. I want to be a football coach. The phone, for 30 seconds, I didn't hear a thing. And finally he said, be a good one. Yes, they did. I was fortunate to have a great family. My father had been a good athlete. He was a very outstanding basketball player in the city of Chicago when he was a young man. And my mother just wanted me to do what I wanted. My mother she loved literature. She was my mother was born in Russia, came here when she was 5 years old in 1908, had only gone to first grade in elementary school, but she had studied like you can't believe. She was into literature heavily, so she just thought, if that's what you want, go ahead. The answer, yes, they supported me.
Thank you. You know the gentleman right beside? Go ahead.
Yes, this young man right here.
So how did you convey your 6 pillars off the field and out of the stadium?
How did you convey your 6 pillars off the field? The 6 pillars of character.
Well, you hope you do it by how you conduct yourself and how you interact with other people. The 6 pillars are a wonderful composite of what it takes. I can't say that we walked around specifying the 6 pillars at the time. It's fine when you sit down and evaluate, but I hope you conduct yourself in a manner that it's honest. You care about your neighbors, you care about your community, you have respect for other people, and it doesn't have to relate to athletics. It can relate to athletics, but it can relate to a lot of other things as well. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to play football or any other sport in order to possess the fine qualities that come from those 6 pillars. So I just think how you conduct yourself, young man.
And if I can add a question in here, Coach, for these students, there's a great learning lesson in the fact that, you went to 4 Super Bowls, but you also lost those 4 Super Bowls. And for all of us sitting out here, that even though, doesn't mean you guys didn't prepare as hard as the other teams, doesn't mean, all these things, they could be facing the same thing, whether it's on the field, whether it's a test, maybe they couldn't get an A 4 straight times, or whatever it might be. What advice do you have for them when when that happens? How do you pick yourself back up, and how do you keep trucking along?
Well, I'll tell you, after losing those games, there was a little bit of a formula we followed. I don't think they have to do that, but I'll get to the more specific. Yeah, there was a period where we mourned. Darn it. But not too long. You don't just continue to lie there in the fetal position and whimper and give up. Then you own up. What could I have done better? What should I have done better? How could I plan better? Will it help make a difference? At least you evaluate that. Then you recognize the good. Look at the guys I'm working with here. Look at the people who are going to coordinate with me on that. Then you make a plan. And then you execute the plan, because a great idea is just a job half done. You can come up with great, wonderful ideas. You got to go to work. So essentially, that was the formula we followed. I'm going to ask you to sort of repeat the gist of the question, or did I address it?
You covered it. Yeah,
okay.
You covered it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions out here? We have a gentleman back here. I thought.
Coach, you already made one point that I tell my class all the time about following happiness, not following money, and that's a great point. But the thing that I want to ask you is, could you describe for us when the strength of your character was most tested in your life? The strength of your character.
That's a very good question. Certainly those losses, but that was still a game. Yeah, I'll give one. I don't think this is the most, but I'll give you an example. One night at our hotel before a game, we were playing an opponent, I forget who it was. Someone called me up and said he'd gotten hold of our opponent's game plan, and would I be interested in getting it? And I said no, and I reported it to the NFL office. That's all. I mean, if we won the game on that basis, there wouldn't have been any savoring to it. Now, when you cheat others, you're cheating yourself.
And how many would have done the same thing? Just curious. You can be honest. Yeah, a lot of us probably wouldn't. I mean, honestly, probably wouldn't have. But it's just to show the strength of your character, of Coach Levy's character. If we got another question out here. If not, we'll go ahead and go back to the video conference groups. Let's go back to Fraser. You get bonus round, the second round. Fraser, if you have a question, go ahead there in Perryopolis, Pennsylvania.
How do you feel that as an adult you're continuing to shape your character?
Something about
How do you feel as an adult you are continuing to shape your character?
I can't say that I wake up every morning and say I'm going to continue to shape my character. There's just certain principles that finally become ingrained that you follow. Temptation is going to be there from time to time. Temptation to cheat. Temptation. You walk by somebody on the street and they drop a roll of bills out of their pocket, a roll of $20 or whatever. What do? Do you pick it up and put it in your pocket, or do you go back and give it to the person? You know, what do you really profit from whatever amount of money that you picked up there, as opposed to what you give up in how you can, in self-esteem when you do something of that nature. So I just think live by principles that are important. Has every single thing I've done in my life been pure? No. And there's no one in the room that can do that. There's sometimes you say, oh, gee, have I ever told a lie? Yes. If any adult, even your age or more, ever tells you they've never told a lie, they're lying. So sometimes you castigate yourself for it, but I hope it's never been anything real meaningful. I told you about the lie I told my father when I cut school.
And Coach, now you got me feeling guilty. You dropped money last night at dinner.
Oh, I dropped much more than that.
Let's go to Texas, Santo, and we'll come back to the audience. We've got about five more minutes here. That's a great question. If you could change anything in life, what would it be?
The outcome of those Super Bowls, of course. I'm fortunate. I'm very grateful for what I've had in life. My family, my friends, the education I had. There's not much I could change. I guess big thing I would change is, and I know I can't, is war. There be none.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions out here? Do we have any more? If not, we'll go back to our young lady up here.
Yeah.
They're looking at each other.
This man is getting to work on.
Okay, over here, yes.
This man is getting to work on.
Right here. She's got it.
Yeah, that's the...
Throughout your years of coaching, what was the most important thing that your players taught you?
Oh, boy, I'm so sorry.
What was the most, this is a great question. Throughout your years of coaching, what was the most important thing your players taught you?
That all people are different, but they're all the same in importance. You know that. Just that. So such a variety of personalities and backgrounds and ways to act and particularly with the Buffalo Bills and at the College of William and Mary, people who overachieved, who were so resilient. They taught me that people are basically good. Try and nurture the goodness in them.
Great. Let's go. We'll go with a question from Sedgefield in Virginia.
Did you have any leadership in school?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Did you have any leaderships in school?
I guess
any leadership positions or roles. We're younger, so he's talking looking in the future. What kind of things did you do in younger school or in the junior high to help you prepare to become the kind of person you are today?
Did you? Yeah. What kind of leadership roles did you take on as like a middle school student, a high school student, that can prepare you for the future?
That's a good question. I didn't strive to say I'm in charge. That wasn't it. I don't know. I just tried to communicate with my fellow students, and I was captain of a team. I was a student body president at CO. Those were leadership, but I don't, just try to, it's more communication than leadership. More communication than leadership with other students.
Great, thank you, Sedgefield. Let's go Mountain Gap, New Jersey, or excuse me, Alabama.
What inspired you to drop out of Harvard Law and become a football coach?
And I think you touched on it a little bit, but what inspired you to drop out of Harvard Law School and become a football coach?
First of all, I loved the game. I loved the competition. It was fun. It was things to do. But it was a lifetime of communicating with others. I knew that. Teammates, students that inspired me. It just seemed like fun. I idolized my coaches, and I saw what fine people they were, and I said, what a life that would be. So it was just something that developed over a period of a few years. It wasn't something I sat down and mulled and said, okay, I made a decision today. It's something that comes up. And some of you are going to want to, some of you have a compulsion to do something in life which may be far different than what I would have wanted to do. But I admire you for it if you dedicate yourself to it.
We've got time for maybe one or two more questions from the live audience. Thank you, Mountain Gap. If we have any others, we'll do one more to close out the or two more. We got two more. One over here and the gentleman there.
Coach Levy, you have many kids sitting in this audience that may want to become a coach someday, high school, college, or professional, but could you give these kids an idea of your one day from start to finish as a pro football coach? Most kids just see you a Sunday at noon kickoff, and the game's over at 4.
Yeah, football coaching is not. I used to tell our players, by the way, at the Buffalo Bills, you don't get paid for Sunday. Sunday's fun. You get paid for the preparation during the week, all the hard work in the weight room, the wind sprints, the learning your assignments, the repetition, the understanding of the team schemes. So the game, I got so involved that I lost track once more, again, of the specifics you were asking. Oh, what would I tell a young man that wants to be in it? Yes. Yeah, it's got to be something you love to do. The work week, you're going to spend more time in a 10 by 13 film room than you are out on the football field on game day. You have to dedicate yourself to it. I'd say this also. If the only way you're going to be happy is to be a pro football coach or a head coach in college, don't go into it. It never occurred to me when I started. Love what you do. I've got a lot of letters sometime when I was coaching. How do I become a coach in the NFL? And very few coaches are fortunate enough to let things develop where they go there. But if they are loving what they're doing, they're making a great contribution to themselves, to others, and to a life they should enjoy.
And we'll go to the last question of the program there, sir.
Yeah, Coach, as a fellow football coach, we talk about leadership to our team. Can you tell all the young people here how everyone in the team or everybody in a part of a group can be a leader and how there's different roles of leadership?
Yeah, well, okay, I really don't know if everyone can be a leader, but everyone can be a great example by how they conduct themselves, by how they come back. And you do it within your own personality. Some players are just normally extroverted. Some are quieter and more reserved. I even think of coaches, maybe these guys were a little bit before your time, but two of the greatest coaches that ever coached back in the 1960s and 70s were Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry. Landry with the Dallas Cowboys, Lombardi, Green Bay Packers. And they were very different personalities, but they had three qualities that were identical. Both of them could teach, they could convey, they could get across to their players what they're trying to get. 1. 2, both of them worked well with others in the organization. It wasn't my way or the highway. Both of them relied on their director of player personnel. They believed in others in the organization. And 3rd, both of them were straight shooters. They didn't con their players. They didn't lie to them. They didn't bring a guy on and say, you come to our team, you're going to be our starting left guard. What if he isn't? What if someone beats him out? Who are you cheating that might compete with him? You might say, our left guard position is wide open. I've liked what I've seen of you on film. That's why I'm coming after you. That's honest. Now he's got to go to work and earn it. So those are some of the things.
Okay, thank you very much. And Coach, are there any, as we close out the program here, are there any last words you'd like to share with these students? Maybe anything we didn't touch on, or? Well,
I'll tell you, I mentioned earlier that I coached for 47 years, and finally at the end of the 1997 season, and you were all infants, at the end of the 1997 season, I decided to retire. And with the Bills, I'd been there for 12 years and very close to the players on that team. And I wanted to tell them, before I talked to the media, that I was retiring, what they had meant to me and my family, in fact. And I said, I'm going to leave you with a wish list. And so with a little bit of adaptation, I'll leave a wish list for these young people here today. I wish for all of you an idealism that lasts a lifetime. Because the day you become a cynic is the day you're going to lose your youth. You don't want to do that. I wish for you difficulties, but not an inordinate number. The ones you have to overcome. I wish for you the capacity to laugh often and frequently at yourself. I wish for you friends who have earned your trust and a trustworthiness that earns you friends. I wish for you just the right amount, not too much, just the right amount of impatience. I wish for you the opportunity upon occasion to be a 7-point underdog, to have to fight your way back, to have to overcome obstacles, and then to do it, to dedicate yourself to it. I wish for you tolerance, given and received. Tolerate differences in personality and culture, race, beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever, tolerance. I wish for you being able to say often, with a touch of wonderment in your voice, something I said to our players before the kickoff of every game I ever coached. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now? And I wish for you, finally, I'm going to call them mechanical skills, the kind that will allow you to rebuild broken dreams, and the kind that will allow you to say always, the best is yet to come. It's been a pleasure visiting with you today, and I wish you the best is yet to come. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate, again, taking time to be here, and just want to say thank you for the wonderful conversation here today. Hopefully, I know I took things, so I'm going to take things away from this, and I hopefully you will as well. I want to thank the students for being here, all the schools tuning in through video conferencing. We want to thank you for your attendance here today and your participation, and this concludes our program. Thank you very much.